Today's gear review is on a late 70s Technics SL1650. Now, I just wrapped up a review video on a Technics SL1900. And so what I'm going to cover in this video is going to be pretty much the same thing that I covered in the last video. So there's going to be a lot of similar information. I'll start off by saying, well, I'm going to say a couple things. So number one, Technics turntables. These are the Toyota Camrys or the Honda Accords of turntables. They're reliable and they run and they're easy to sort out. They're typically easy to service. They're great looking turntables. Cannot speak highly enough about Technics turntables. The other thing I want to preface the video with is there's not a whole lot of definitive information on exactly when these were manufactured and sold. At least I could not find it. So I'm guessing 1977 because I found a product brochure and it was 1977, and that's kind of where I landed. So in that brochure from 1977, well, let me take a step back. So functions fully automatic stacker capable, so you can, this does not have the spindle with it, but you can stack records on this and play more than one at a time. Dimensions weight weren't listed, so I'm not going to weigh and measure this. It's larger though than the 1900 that I just did a review on. So this is more along the lines of the SL1200, because that's probably their most popular turntable as far as its size goes. So getting to the 1977 brochure that I looked at, there was an insane amount or number of turntables that Technics was producing at the time, manufacturing. They were also doing it for like MCS, modular component system, for was it J.C. Penney's, I think, Montgomery Ward's, one of those catalog stores. Panasonic as well, right? Early Panasonic. The turntables that they had listed in this 1977 brochure, I put them into four different tiers. Actually, 5 different tiers. So there was the high level no tone arm tier, where you basically bought the plinth and the motor and maybe a cover, and then you had to fit your own tone arm to it. Of those turntables, at least in this brochure, they were offering the SL1000, SP10, SL110, and SL120. Then you had the Mark II turntables, and what was weird was the catalog or the brochure did not list the SL1200, but I'm pretty sure they were selling the SL1200 in 1977. Of the models they had listed, I'm going to throw the 1200 in there, but you had the 1200, 1300, 1400, 1500. And I know the 13, 14, and 1500 were all Mark II models. I would assume that the 1200 was Mark II, but I have no idea. It could have been a Mark III was introduced at that point in time. Then you had the 1800 or the 1600, 1700, 1800 tier, and then the 1650. I don't know if we had 1850s or 1750s, but I know for sure that catalog referenced 2 stacker models, the 1650 and the 1950. But as far as this tier goes, you had the 1650, 17, and 18. Then you had a kind of a step down from that tier. You had the 1900, 1950, and 2000. Just did a review on a 1900. And then you had your entry-level tables, the SL 20 and 23. And again, the lines are blurred on some of these product lines, and there may have been more turntables. I don't know. I mean, Technics made so many different models of turntables, it gets dizzying. I thought Pioneer was bad. Technics they win the award for numbers of different modeled turntables, right? Because they seem to make just tons and tons and tons of different turntables. So aesthetically, right, late 70s vibe. The The one thing I don't like about Technics turntables, and it's completely an aesthetic thing, is that they get kind of lost in the crowd. They kind of blend in with all, and really they kind of led the way with styling, I think. But, you know, eventually every early 80s turntable kind of looked like a Technics, you know. At least in my opinion. So this one gets kind of lost in the crowd. You know, it's not a 1200. It's not a 23. It fits right there in the middle. Operation for these is really easy. So you have speed selector. So you have no speed. You have 45. You have 33. You have pitch controls for 33 and 45. You do have a strobe. I love strobes on turntables. You have levers on this one though. So you have start, stop, record size 7, 10, and 12. You have a memogram. So this is where you can have it repeat a record so many times. I don't remember if this is also used for the stacker function or not. I don't know. If when I go to edit this video, if the owner's manual says something about the stacker function and the memogram dial, I will include that. But I don't run these tables, so I'm not really sure. Setup is pretty easy. So you have your counterweight, you have a tone arm elevator lever, nice and smooth. You have anti-skate. It's a dial, right? Dial type anti-skate. Oh, I didn't set it on this when I set it up, so let me move that over there. And then you have a tone arm, you know, removable head shell, S-shaped. The cool thing about tone arms for Technics, at least there are several models of Technics tone arms, and I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but you can modify an AR turntable head block or tone arm block with a Technics tone arm amongst other brands. But we're talking about Technics right now, not ARs. Serviceability on these, I have, like I said in the last video, I think I've had one, maybe two Technics turntables that I couldn't sort out, or they were just damaged to the point where I couldn't repair them. You know, you get to a point where putting more money into a turntable that you can't sell for a lot of money is kind of foolish. So, but these are really easy to sort out. This one had speed stability issues. There's a service video that I'm going to release to the channel on this one as well. It kind of took me a minute to, because again, I've worked on so many different Techniques. They all disassemble differently, and so it took me a while to figure out how to get to the pitch controls, but once I did, they were really easy to clean and service. As it is with Technics turntables, if you get one that's not working, as long as it's not missing something or something isn't broken, you can typically get them sorted out pretty easily. So I really, really like that about Technics turntables. Again, the Toyota Camry or Honda Accord of turntables. I think they are probably a little more resilient to owners not performing maintenance on them. Again, like a Camry or an Accord. And I'm a Toyota guy, so I always, you know. But they're great, and I never worry when one of these come into the shop, because again, I've worked on dozens of these turntables, dozens of Technics turntables, and again, there are only a few that are sitting up at 402 vinyl as parts units that I could not figure out. Common issues with these, so and. This can be caused by several things, right? But the number one issue that I have found on Technics turntables, especially servo-controlled turntables, not quartz lock, but servo-controlled tables, speed stability issues. And those speed stability issues typically will arise from one of three things, and really one of two things that the typical owner would have to worry about. You have dirty pitch control pots, because these are mechanical. You have potentially dirty variable resistors that actually you would adjust to ensure that these are kind of set to the middle position, right, when it's at 33 or 45. Some of those are like plastic, and some of those are old school, like metal. Well, anything that's metal can introduce oxidation or can be affected by oxidation. And even the plastic ones, there's metal on the inside, but they're a little more durable than like the ones on this one. The ones on the 1900, they were good. The ones on this one were kind of the older school metal ones. So they're a little more prone to oxidation. So what that means is when I clean the pots, these two pitch controls weren't centered. 33 was, if you picture the face of a clock, if midnight was centered, to get to 33, I had to turn it to about, gosh, probably like 5 o'clock. Right, and you want it close to like that midnight position, and that's what those variable resistors underneath here. And again, I covered that in the service video. That's how you adjust that, but those get dirty as well. And then naturally, any of that or all of that can be caused by 40-year-old capacitors, integrated circuits if they have them, failing transistors, those types of things. A majority of the time, though, on a Technics, you really just have to tweak the variable resistor and clean the pitch controls, and you're good. I haven't really come across any issues beyond that. I mean, I've been able to sort out every Technics turntable except for the one that was physically damaged. I've been able to sort out all of the automatic functions. Now, on some of the turntables, not this one, but there's a white nylon gear that is a part of the automatic function. It actually, if I remember correctly, it goes around the spindle shaft. Again, not this model, but that's a common issue. What'll happen is that nylon shrinks and then it splits and then a tooth comes off, and that will affect some of these. But there are people that sell 3D printed replacement parts, and even when that happens, sometimes you just get a little bit of a hitch in the tone arm movement. It doesn't really stop it from functioning. It just isn't very smooth. At least that's been my experience with these. So really, speed is the big thing on these, speed control issues. If you are considering picking one of these up, what should you look for? Naturally with any turntable, I would look for cosmetic completeness, because if it's complete, if it has a good dust cover and it has, all of this stuff, you can typically on Technics sort everything out. So what I would look for, number one, is does it have everything? Does it have a head shell? This is a Technics head shell. These are good head shells. Does it have a head shell? Does it have a cover? Is the cover cracked? The material that they used, so this paint, it's on this particular model, it's very durable, but on some other Techniques, it's not as durable. So I would check to see how much of this paint is missing. I mean, you're not really going to be able to repaint it. I guess you probably could try. And then lettering. This lettering I've always found it to be pretty durable on these. If there's any residue from, let's say, some, like I put these little clear bumpers on here. This one actually had big felt semicircle pads, and then it had a dust bug here, and all of that, all of the backing, right? The glue residue was stuck on here. Well, when I went to clean that off, I had to be very careful, because I've had some Techniques, and really it's more other manufacturers, that when you start wiping it or cleaning it, this paint will just come off if you use the wrong solvent, if it's the wrong turntable. So, you have to be aware of that if you're looking for one of these. So, and then functionality is nice to know, right? It's nice to know if it's functioning, what's broken. If its speed is erratic, that can typically be sorted out pretty easily. If the tone arm's not working, could be an issue of old grease. It could be a part that's broken. You just never know. So, completeness, functionality, all of that kind of stuff. If you're considering picking one of these up, so the price spread on these was not all that great. It was very similar to the SL1900. I might say that the prices on these have bumped up a little bit compared to the 1900. It is a larger turntable. I would say it's a higher. It's higher on the rung. It's not top of the line, but it's close to being in the middle. Right, it's kind of an average plus turntable. So what I found this morning, and when I go to edit the video, it may be different, but $500-ish is the absolute top end on these. I think that's a little bit too much. I I think these are probably more like $400 turntables on the typical top end. Now, if one of these was recapped and it looked like a museum piece, well, yeah, I could see more than $500. But for the run-of-the-mill working Technics, SL 1600 or 1650, and if I said 1600, I apologize. This is a 1650. $400, right? So this is missing the stacker. It's not in really good shape. I would have a hard time pricing this at 400 bucks. I think that's a little bit much for this. But there's a spread. They sell a lot of not 1650s, but they sell a lot of 1600s. So I'm gonna say 400 is probably a reasonable price at top end. You could see 500 or more if it's in really good shape. Middle of the road, maybe 350. You know, again, it's 50. It's worth $50 or more, more than the 1900, and I think I put the 1900 at about 250. Right, so $300, 350. You know, I think that's a pretty fair price for these. And then for parts are not working, definitely under $200 is what I would be willing to pay. Now, when I go to edit the video, I may find 4 parts or not working units that have sold for more than that. If I find that, I will definitely include those images. And if any of my prices were off, because to be honest with you, before I shot the video, I forgot to do the pricing information. But again, I see these things all the time. So if I was way off, then I will absolutely put little tags of text at the bottom of the video as I'm discussing pricing information. But I'm fairly confident that what I'm sharing this morning is going to be pretty accurate. So again, 400-ish, 450-ish, maybe 500-ish if it's in really good shape, and then 350 in the middle, and then parts less than 200 bucks. So good turntable, solid turntable. It's going to run for a long time. Just reliable turntables, easy to sort out. Maintenance on these and service on these, again, I've always found to be very easy, and I've always been able to sort these out. Definitely for the routine issues you run into, this is a beginner's service, turntable. Now, repairs may get a little weird with some of the different models, but on this one, I really didn't see anything that was that scary on this one. I might jinx myself and come across one that's going to kick my butt someday, but it's not like working on a direct drive fully automatic Sony from this era, or Denon or Pioneer, right? Those are way more complex and complicated than these Technics tables. So great turntables, just absolutely killer turntables, reliable, understated, right? Yeah, Technics was just they were knocking it out of the park back in the day when they were cranking out turntables. So I think that'll wrap it up for the Technics SL1650. As always, if you like what you see, hit like, hit subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video.